Soils are compacted, especially fragile soils or cryptobiotic soils like we have here that have microorganisms living in them that the vegetation depends on in order to grow. Well, once those cryptobiotic soils are destroyed, it makes it that much harder for vegetation to come back. And it can take years for these soils to recover. And I think even more importantly than soils are issues with runoff, where traditionally, I guess you could say many of the flat desert plains in this area were known for what's called laminar flow. So a heavy rainstorm would come and the water would build up, but the water would sort of flow in sheets across a flat plain and be distributed evenly among the vegetation that really the entire ecosystem depends on. But if we start to get channels like this, and the water starts to flow through the channels, then that can deny vegetation of the water it needs, and it can cause erosion problems. And many of you, I'm sure, have been on some dirt roads around here that seem to be slowly sinking over the years. And just like the Grand Canyon was carved by erosion over millennia, these tire tracks and eventually roads over time will erode out and get lower and lower, and you end up with a gully with water flowing quickly through the gully rather than being spread slowly and evenly throughout the desert. Here's a map of Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. Many of you, I'm sure, are more familiar with it even than I am. This is where the ranger station is located. This is the border town of Louisville, Sonoyta, and the crossing port of entry there, and of course the border. This is where I inserted just so you would know where that forward operating base has been built. Obviously, we had advocated for the forward operating base to be built in a more forward position, closer to the border, especially maybe on the border road itself, or in the town of Louisville, or closer to the ranger station. But U.S. Customs and Border Protection instead opted to build the base way up here. I know it's more than 12 miles from the border, maybe even be 16 miles from the border. That aside, I want to show you what some of the impacts look like from too much vehicular off-road traffic. So this is a map of what it's supposed to look like. All these roads are supposed to be here. This is a map, according to the Park Service, of what it actually looks like. And all of these orange roads are not supposed to be there. Now, they call these wilderness incursion routes. So an incursion is when someone drives off-road into the wilderness. Border Patrol works with the Park Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service so that if they have to drive off-road into wilderness for exigent circumstances, an emergency, hot pursuit and whatnot, they file an incursion report. So partially from incursion reports and partially from just monitoring and using satellite data and looking at the ground, they've been able to come up with this map and an estimation of more than 2,500 miles of vehicle tracks and what we call renegade roads or wildcat roads in designated wilderness. Now, if this was an off-roading park, recreation area, it might not be a problem, but it's not. It's a wilderness. A wilderness means no off-road driving, no mechanized anything, no chainsaws, no bicycles. It means you're out there on foot, you're out there on your horse, I don't know, maybe your hand glider. But the options are limited. Wilderness is set aside just for that, for wilderness and for nature. So this becomes a problem. Now, you're probably looking here and saying, well, look at all that. It's from smugglers. They're driving across the border, and they're causing most of the problem. Smugglers do cause some of this problem. However, it's important to remember that vehicle barriers were constructed across the entire southern boundary of the Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument in 2006. And that makes it more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult to drive across the border. And there is a patrol road right here that goes along the border wall, and that's where a lot of these incursions originate, is at the actual patrol road. This is from the Organ Pipe State of the Park report. You can see that over the years, these are the years 2002, 3, 2004, 2005, etc., all the way up to 2011. And as they installed first vehicle barriers, and then what they call pedestrian fencing or the taller border walls, And then finally, the SBI-net towers, which are surveillance towers. As this happened, if you look at the blue graph here, foot trails, they went down, and then they went up a little bit, they went down. So it seems like the foot trails have decreased to some extent. But look at the orange vehicle tracks. The vehicle tracks have skyrocketed and gone through the roof. And it's kind of common sense. I mean, if you put the vehicle barrier there and call it good, the vehicle tracks might go down. But it's not just a vehicle barrier. It's a camera system that detects motion and finds suspicious activity, combined with more agents than ever before with vehicles stationed on our southern border, so that when something is detected, there are more agents going to check it out. There are more agents driving, there are more things being detected, there's more traffic. That's just the truth here at Oregon Pipe Cactus National Park. At Cabeza Prieta, which by the way is just to the west of Oregon Pipe, this is Oregon Pipe right here with the base. Cabeza Prieta has an even worse problem, you could say, because they have more of those renegade tracks. This is from a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service study that, where they also used satellite imaging, found nearly 8,000 miles of unauthorized vehicle tracks and renegade roads. And this is just on the Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge, which, like Oregon Pipe, is over 90% wilderness. Now, this is changing the landscape. It's really changing the nature of these two protected areas here in the West Desert. And we need to get a handle on it. Part of these changes are unfortunately sort of showing up in our minds and in our own representations of these areas. I'll give you an example of the Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. There's a project that several different agencies worked together on, so that, mostly because they didn't want people to get lost while they were in these West Desert areas, that they got a lot of new Border Patrol agents, and they're having trouble finding their way around. So they came up with what's called the Southwest Regional Map Project. I don't know if any of you have seen it. I've seen it, but I don't have one. They're for official use only. So you'll have to pardon my my graphics here. My graphics aren't the highest quality, but this shows you what the roads are supposed to be in this particular area of Cabeza Prieta. And I want you to compare that with the Southwest Regional Map Project, where you see the so-called Thule Extension Road here and this road here. So you'll note that what's green on the official map of Cabeza Prieta, and therefore wilderness, no roads, now has roads running through it on the newer version of the official map, well, semi-official map, the map that is used by most patrol agents on Cabeza Prieta. So these are big changes, and this is not how we should be going about making these changes. If we need new roads through wilderness, there are processes that should be undertaken. The lines shouldn't just be drawn on the map. They shouldn't just appear. That's not how our legal process works. Another example here in the Thule Desert area, you can see this road ends, this road comes over and ends. You've got the El Camino del Diablo, the very famous route through the Cabeza Prieta. And on the official version, which I had to get James Bond to take this picture for me, I apologize, but you can see here's this road here, and here's this road here coming through, and then when there's this red route here that shouldn't be there, there's some purple routes over here. We don't know exactly what's going on, and unfortunately, because of the way that U.S. Customs and Border Protection operates, we don't have the opportunity to find out what's going on and to figure out, to make sense of the discrepancies that we see between what should be protected and what's actually happening on the ground. Oh, there it is. I forgot that I circled it. So, more roads appearing is probably going to mean more dragging happening. More roads to be dragged by Border Patrol. Border Patrol drags these tires around to Zamboni, the road, make it nice and flat, and they have a flat surface to look for footprints. It's part of their cutting sign, it's part of their tracking. Obviously, it's not a very high-tech solution or a high-tech technique, but it is very commonly used, especially here in the West Desert. And this is one of the largest drags you've ever seen. It's sort of a triple drag. Well, more dragging means wider roads. If you imagine tugging a trailer around behind you, but it doesn't have wheels keeping it straight, these drags can, start to go off the road and cut into the vegetation, widen the road. And some of these roads have archaeological sites alongside of them. Those can be disturbed as well as the vegetation being disturbed. And, we just feel that CBP can do better. They've got a big budget, they've got high-tech capabilities. I was in a meeting with the Tucson sector just this morning. They're talking about their efforts to try to catch people closer to roads so that they don't have to drive off-road. And so that's what we're really working towards together, is how to figure out solutions to these problems so we can both protect the environment and secure the border. I forgot what's next. Oh. Then we have the issue of the walls. And I'm just going to show you a few examples to try to keep it local here. This is the wall flood that occurred in 2011, August of 2011 in Oregon Pike. And to make a long story short, Department of Homeland Security has waived 37 federal protection laws. They've waived 37 regulations that govern the way you should build large-scale construction projects such as a border wall that's dozens, if not hundreds of miles long. And so they just showed up and built a wall without doing the studies that needed to be done to explore what the repercussions would be, hydrologically and otherwise. And so it was a nice dry flat spot to build a wall. As we all know, when the rain comes down, that dry wash becomes a flash flood zone. And when the flash flood came through 2 or 3 summers ago, it actually knocked down the wall. And that causes some damage to our taxpayer financed infrastructure here. But it also causes damage to the land. And here we see a lot of that erosion that I was talking about, where all of a sudden you have water flowing, the water's flowing through the wall where the wall fell down. And the water usually flows, 40, 50, 60 feet down the wall, but that part of the wall happened to be stronger. And so when the wall fell down in the weak spot, you've got a whole new canal that this flash flood dug. And that was something that the National Park Service needed to come back and try to rehabilitate and revegetate to the best of their ability. So we taxpayers are paying for the wall to be rebuilt, and we're paying for the park, the monument to be revegetated. By the way, that's a truck right there, full-size pickup. So you can see it's about 10 feet deep here. Pretty big canyon that got carved. We at the Sierra Club are very concerned about the walls blocking wildlife migrations. And these are a few examples. This one, and the top two here from Oregon Pike. You see we've got a toad and some sort of bird got itself stuck in the wall. We don't know how that happened. These two are from the San Pedro further east. But we can see some larger animals like the deer and the javelina being blocked by the wall. And the wall not only blocks migrations, but it also can sort of chop up an animal's habitat. It would be as if we built a wall across this auditorium right now, and those of us on this side are free to get out and go to our cars, and the rest of you are stuck in here, and we'll see how you fare. That's sort of the metaphor that we draw for wildlife when the habitat is fragmented. And that's detrimental to wildlife that a lot of us really love to watch and hunt or enjoy otherwise. The worst part about walls is that they don't work. It costs a lot of money to build, but people are smarter than animals for the most part and are able to build things like ladders to get up and over the wall. Any of you who've been down to Oregon Pike or Bootville area, you've probably seen holes cut in the wall. People cut through the wall, people dig under the wall, they tunnel, they go around the wall to places where there are no walls. They're not having the desired effect of stopping undocumented migration or drug smuggling. What we need to do instead are address the root causes. We probably have our differing ideas about how to do that. Just so you know, the Sierra Club idea is to support immigration reform, get people moving through the official ports of entry, rather than sort of being pushed out into the desert and causing all of these problems here in rural Arizona. We also want to help develop sending countries. Just help them have sustainable development so that the quality of life is a little bit higher. Most people who are migrating across the desert don't really want to be doing that. They'd rather be at home. And so we need to find ways that people can stay home if they want to, so that they have that right. And healthcare, education, just little things that we take for granted. If we help make that happen in sending countries, that can make a big difference. So I always end my spiel with a plea for help. Please help us keep our borders wild. And that's what this design here says. It says, keep our borders wild, protect borderlands, wildlife corridors. And it's a design made by a local artist, and well, a Tucson artist. And I think it speaks for itself. But if you'd like to help, I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet, and you get 1 email per month from me. That's all it is. So you're welcome to sign up if you'd like, but you certainly don't have to. And from there, you'll just get updates. You can feel free to email me back. We need more volunteers if you'd like to volunteer and participate in some of our activities. We go on field trips at least once a year, and we do different activities to try to spread the word about what's happening. So yeah, you can join our team there. This is a DVD called Wild versus Wall. And it's about 20 minutes long. It gives a basic overview of what some of the issues are with the border wall and the waiver that occurred, the waiver of protections. And it's really easy to just pop in the DVD or send it to your friend and look for 20 minutes and kind of learn more about the issue. So it's also narrated by David Yettman, who you may have heard of. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of leave it at that and see if y'all have any questions for me. Or any comments? You don't have to question. Any comments or thoughts? Yes.